Love your football? Coach's Corner starts now.
Welcome, everyone, to the Coach's Corner radio show here for the first program of what year is this? Yeah, it's 2014, that's right. Now we have to get used to dating everything in our checkbook and everything else, 2014 now. Our guest today, Tony DeMeo, is back. He's going to be talking about turning programs around and characteristics of personnel in his triple-gun offense. And also, please help us to welcome some new sponsors to Coach's Corner, Coach's Portfolio, and Coach's Office. Coach Tony DeMeo will be up after we hear this new message. John Mr. Organized Anderson for Coach's Office, a leader in football software since 1997, which has produced play drawings, play cards, practice scripts, playbooks, and more. This powerful processing program enables you to quickly and efficiently produce play diagrams using drop-down menus and advanced line drawing tools. Use its built-in page templates, or you can create your own. Use tables and formatting tools for producing great-looking playbooks. You can even print wristbands and create presentations that combine illustrations and video. Prices start as low as $79 for a youth edition. Be sure to mention the promo code CC when you place your order for a special benefit available to our listeners. Get organized today. Get your office and staff organized. Get Coach's Office today. No, go get it right now.
Let me take you to a place in time where the top rolls down. The hippest cats and the coolest chicks play their radios loud.
This is the CompuSports Radio Network.
Hey everybody.
From Charleston, West Virginia, as promised, we have Tony DeMeo back on the program. Coach, how is Charleston, West Virginia?
I'll tell you, West Virginia is one of America's best-kept secrets. It's a great place to live. I mean, I really enjoy it here. Charleston is a great little city, and I enjoy it.
Coach, program organization, you seem to have perfected this because you have turned 4 programs around. And if there's anybody we need to ask, there's probably... I can count on 2 hands the folks who I think we can ask who's done it multiple times at the college level. I can say that you are definitely in that number, and we could throw a number of names out there, Urban Meyer and a few others. Nick Saban we could throw in there. What is the first thing that you do in order to change team culture in the locker room?
Well, first of all, throwing my name in there with Nick Saban and Urban Meyer is like throwing Phil Rizzuto's name in there with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. I mean, they've really done a great job. I mean, I've been fortunate. I've been around some great kids. But the first thing I do is, and the most important thing you can do is change the culture of where you go. It just so happened the places that I've been hired at, it was the choice was either drop the program or hire Tony. I mean, it was down to that, I think, and as I said, I used the same formula every time, and the number one thing was to change the culture. And I always used to change the culture. You have to raise standards, change beliefs, and change strategy. And those are the 3 things you have to do. Now, when I came to the University of Charleston, which was my last turnaround, we were picked to finish last in the conference. We had 59 players at my first team meeting, and their cumulative GPA, grade point average, was a 1.6.
Wow. So
if we had a play that day, we wouldn't even have been eligible as a team. And I'll never forget the athletic director, may rest in peace, Tom Nazika, who hired me. And I remember him talking to me about the team. And he said, they've lost a lot of games, but there's one thing they have is courage. Those kids have courage. He says, as a matter of fact, they don't know the meaning of the word fear. And I said, well, after looking at their GPAs, there's a lot of words they don't know the meaning of. Fear is just one of them.
And it's strange as you say that. David Shaw did an interview with FootballScoop.com some time ago, and a couple of the things that you mentioned are in that interview, raising academic standards. Going and saying,
well, academic standards, why that's important to team performance and team culture is that what I always preached was a culture of excellence. And excellence knows no bounds. So in other words, you can't be excellent on the field and a disaster in the classroom, because that's not going to benefit anybody. Excellence has to be a way of life. Excellence has to be the way you do things, the way you tie your shoes. Everything you do has to be a way of excellence. This is the old story about John Wooden used to spend the first practice teaching the players how to put their sneakers on. And, like the first time I heard that, I thought they were just joking around because making it seem like he was very detailed. But Bill Walton tells the story how, he takes his shoes off and puts his socks and shoes on exactly the same way so that you don't get blisters. So that's what I mean. I mean, if you're going to change the culture and have a culture of excellence, then you can't allow slippage anywhere. So, again, going back to the University of Charleston, one of the first things I did was institute a strict tutoring program where if you had under a certain GPA, which I believe was 2.2, that you had to go see a tutor and a academic advisor 3 times a week. And if you missed, then you were punished. Stadium steps. If you missed a class, it was stadium steps. And well, the other thing I did was I had every player check in for breakfast every morning. Of all 6 years that I was at the University of Charleston, they had to check in for breakfast between 7 and 7:50. So I knew they were up, and I knew they were getting off to a nutritious start. And I had an assistant coach stand there checking them in as they came in for breakfast. And if they missed, they had to run stadium steps. And I used to tell the players, I said, here's your choice. Cheerios on this hand, stadium steps on this hand. Your choice. It doesn't matter to me. Which would you prefer? And, of course, Cheerios got the nod. And that's the start of it. So when you're turning a program around and changing a culture, you change the thoughts of the people and the behavior of the people that are on the team, and the people you bring into the team have to fit that mold. So one of the things that I was a stickler on in any player that I recruited was the thing I checked on his transcript wasn't necessarily, of course I looked at the GPA, but I also checked class attendance. I wanted to know if this player or this future recruit came to work every day. Did he come to school every day? Or was he a guy who missed a lot of days of school? I wanted a guy who was willing to bring his lunch pail to work every day and go to work. Because a great work ethic will overcome a lot. And I think that class attendance and GPAs are a manifestation of a great work ethic. And then the thing I always asked their high school coach was, did they have a great work ethic? How were they in the weight room? And that tells me a lot. So I recruited disciplined kids who had habits of excellence. And the players that I inherited, I tried to pass that on to them. And if they bought in, then they were part of the team. If they didn't, they had to find someplace else to play. So my first year, we started out with 59 players, like I said in the team meeting, with a 1.6 GPA. And we were picked last in the conference. And we wound up finishing with an 8-3 record, the biggest turnaround in conference history. And those players, I wound up with 40 of those players actually playing. And when I left the University of Charleston 6 years later, the team GPA was a 2.92.
That's outstanding.
So we had the most wins. We had the most wins in the school history over 6 years, over a 6-year period, and the GPA went from 1.6 to a 2.92. So I was pretty happy with those kind of results. But again, it started with the discipline, the daily discipline. It started with the little things. It started with recruiting quality people of excellence. And I would take a less talented work ethic kind of kid over a talented kid that had no discipline and no GPA and no idea of daily excellence.
We'll be talking with more with Tony DeMeo in the next segment. Stick with us.
This is Jerry Campbell, and you are listening to Compy Sports Radio.
The Coaching Portfolio Guide is a new website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Get detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. It contains valuable advice, suggestions, sample documents that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio to help you land that job. Visit www.coachingportfolio.com today to download your copy of the Coaching Portfolio Guide. That's www.coachingportfolio.com.
Mr. Anderson.
We have Tony DeMeo from Charleston, West Virginia. Coach has been around the block a number of times, turned around 4 programs. Coach, I had a conversation with Bud Wilkerson about 1978. I think at the time he was the head coach of the St. Louis Cardinals football team. And you know, this shows you how old I am, because a lot of people don't even know that the Cardinals were in St. Louis at some point in time. And he was a real big stickler on effort, and especially with the younger players, he would say, how many of you gave 100% on absolutely every play today? And he would almost never get a hand raise, because he says, and he didn't expect to, because you can't do that play in and play out. Then he'd ask, how many of you did it 90% of the time? And on the first go-round with this, he wouldn't get any hands either. So when he got down to about 80%, he would get about 4 out of 5. So effort, I know, is a big thing that I think really needs to be stressed and taught a lot more today than what it has been years past. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And you know, one of the keys to teaching effort, and this is not a commercial, but I have a DVD out called The 4 Aces, and it's a system of evaluating performance, and one of the key parts of that is the 4 Aces are awareness, concentration, effort, and synergy. Okay, and I use that to grade players and grade performance. It started out years ago just for football, but then all of a sudden I started talking to businesses about that, like New York Life and Laird Noller Ford and Cherry Hill Toyota and all those different businesses about performance. But anyway, effort, the key to effort is you can demand effort. Really brings effort out in players is measurement. Measure, monitor, and manage. Those are the 3 things that you have to do with effort. But the first thing you have to do is identify what great effort is. So what we did was we picked 10 ways that a player could get an effort point at each position. So say, for example, a running back. If he gained 3 yards after contact, that would be an effort point. If a player made 2 blocks on one play, say a lineman pass protected, then got down and made a second block, that was an effort point. If a receiver was out on a pass pattern and the ball was thrown to another receiver, if that receiver made a block, that was an effort point. Anytime somebody did above and beyond, it was an effort point. But what we did was, for every position, we had 10 of those. So they could identify what I meant by extra effort. So I didn't leave it to their imagination. Because sometimes if you say to a player, are you giving 100% effort, or are you giving all you, they'll say yes, but really they don't really know what you mean by it. So what we did was identify and quantify effort, and then we could measure it. So at the end of the year, we would give an award to the player with the most effort points by his group or by his position. The lineman with the most effort points would get an award. The backs with the most effort points would get an award, and defensively, the defensive linemen would get an award. The linebackers in the secondary. And for example, on defense, one would be to touch the ball. If you touch the ball on defense, even if you don't recover a fumble or get an interception, if your hand touches the ball, that's an effort point. Because I wanted the players constantly trying to strip the ball. So again, we had at every position we had an effort point. If you made a tackle and the player landed on his back, that was an effort point, and things like that. So I agree, effort was very important. And one of the things we did in all 4 turnarounds was increase effort. And why that's important is because sometimes you can be a better team and be really improving, but it's not showing up yet in the W's and L's. Now, we were lucky at Charleston, it did, but it doesn't show up in W's. So what you have to do is have a way of showing your players daily improvement. And if you measure something, if they see a measurement, like after a game, the players always came in to see how many effort points they had. And what we would do is we had a big chart in the locker room, a giant chart, with every player's name and a bar graph, so that we would fill in the bar graphs as he got the effort points, so they could check the standings. So we never had an argument on who should be playing, because all you had to do was look up and see who was getting the most effort points. And my mantra was, we're going to play effort. We're going to play effort. I don't care if you're the greatest high school running back of all time. We're going to play the guy who has the most effort points. So what happens now is that not only you have everybody knows the measuring with wins and losses, but this gives you a way of showing the team that they're getting better, and because they're playing with more effort. And then you can get more effort. And obviously just like Bud Wilkins was saying, is the more effort, the greater the performance, the more wins you get. I gave you a quick rundown, but there's material on my website, TonyDeMeo.com. There's an article there about the 4 aces, and then there's a DVD if you want to get that. But this isn't a commercial. I'm just explaining to you how we handled effort.
And you can find all sorts of information at TonyDeMeo.com.
Love your football? Coach's Corner resumes after this break. And oh yeah, John too.
Track your entire equipment and clothing inventory in real time with Athletic Equipment Manager. You'll know where it is and who has it. Quickly add or adjust inventory levels. A tag system assigns and tracks each piece. Look up the status of single items or groups of items. Assemble and print reports for each athlete or entire teams, any sport. And it works in single and multi-user mode. Even on your laptop, Athletic Equipment Manager puts you in control. Download it today and try it for free from CompuSports.
This segment of Coach's Corner is sponsored by CompuSports, publisher of Athletic Equipment Manager software, the affordable sports inventory software that starts at just $199, available at CompuSports.com. Well, we're going to shift gears now with Coach DeMeo. We've talked about organizational structure. We've talked about turnarounds. I've tried to get him to give me his best chili recipe. He won't do that, so we'll just have to move on, I guess. So, Coach, let's see. I have a thought in my head, and maybe you can explain it to me, because every time I talk to you, I get this thought in my head of Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis, sound doctrine. Oh, by the way, there's sound doctrine right there. We've got, let's see, what do they all have in comment. Yes, jazz. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the triple gun offense is football's version of jazz. It's free-flowing. It morphs from one play to another based on what the defense does. It's free-flowing. It's amazing that Miles Davis and Vince Lombardi have a lot in common. Vince Lombardi's power sweep could morph, because it could hit in so many different places, morphed into different plays. It could go all the way to the perimeter around the end. It could go off tackle. It could go almost up the middle. When I put this triple gun offense together, it was made up of plays that had the same idea, that it could base play. The gun triple could be a backside screen. It could be a backside cutback. It could be a frontside dive. It could be a frontside quarterback keep, or it could be a frontside pitch. So it has 5 possibilities after the ball is snapped that, as a play caller, I have no idea which one it'll be. They'll all be based on the opponent's defensive reaction. In jazz, Miles Davis might start out with Bye-Bye Blackbird, but after a few notes, go off into a direction where you'd never recognize that particular song. So that's what I talk about when I talk about the triple gun offense being football's jazz offense.
Coach, I know you have spent some time in some out-of-the-way places, maybe some backdoor pubs where the adult beverages were free-flowing and so was the music. That seems to be home for you.
I like Bourbon Street in New Orleans. I mean, I've gone to Preservation Hall more than a couple of times. And growing up, I mean, I grew up in the Bronx. Harlem was, one of the mega centers of jazz at the time. And whenever I'm in St. Louis, I always manage to hit the Acme barbecue joint, which always has a good jazz band playing. So, I do. I like jazz, and kind of a dying art form, but I think to those people who like it, it'll never die. Even on American Idol now, they've added Harry Connick Jr. Well, Harry Connick Jr.'s roots are in New Orleans jazz.
Yes, Harry. His father I believe, was the district attorney for the city of New Orleans, if I'm right there.
And New Orleans is still, you can always go down there and hear good jazz. I mean, that's the home of Wynton Marsalis and, as I said, Harry Connick Jr. The Marsalis family actually the whole family was into jazz. And you mentioned Louis Armstrong, of course, that was his roots were down in New Orleans, too.
Yes, they were.
Like still to this day, when they play When the Saints Go Marching In, chaos breaks out. So, but I just feel like the way defenses are today, where they line up in so many different things and do so many different things, your offense has to adjust on the run. Gone are the days where you could just line up and call an isolation play or a power O play and be sure that you were going to make that play was going to work because of the stunts and the zone blitzes and things that defenses are doing. So your offense has to adjust after the snap, and that's what really makes an offense effective, if it adjusts after the snap. If your offense can adjust after the snap, number one, you don't have to be a great play caller. And number two, your quarterback doesn't have to have a million audibles to get in and out of a good play.
In the playoffs here this past year, Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos were showing a wrinkle of Peyton being in the pistol with no Sean Marino or any number of backs behind him. And they were going triple to one side, and Wes Welker running the bubble route or bubble screen in anticipation of a quick throw coming out of that there. What does that tell you as a coach when you start seeing something that you've developed now with all of the options and the intricacies now appearing in the NFL?
Kind of predicted that was going to happen a few years ago, and then it started to happen more regularly with RG3, Colin Kaepernick, and Russell Wilson, And but I didn't expect to see it with Peyton Manning. But what they've done with Peyton Manning is they've taken the quarterback keep part of it out, and the bubble has replaced the pitch, and the dive inside to Marino is still a dive, and so. But there more and more teams are reading or using a read type of play to eliminate one defender, and I think that only makes sense because it's harder and harder to run the ball in the NFL. Now, it just so happens that two of the NFC teams that are vying, the Seahawks and the 49ers, have used the read play a lot all season and have made a living on it. Russell Wilson doing it with Marshawn Lynch is a great, great weapon, and it's hard to contain both of them. Now, the 49ers didn't run it as much this year as they did last year because I believe they were saving Colin Kaepernick for the playoffs. And in other words, they didn't want to wear him out before the playoffs began. So they used it sparingly, but effectively.
Coach, we're going to talk more about the quarterback position and the talents thereof here in our next segment. Here's there's that jazz again. Coaches helping coaches. That is the message behind Jerry Campbell Football. Jerry Campbell Football provides the best quality products that can increase the range of information and understanding of football coaches, players, and fans. You can find great value on the website located at www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. Jerry Campbell Football has books and DVDs available, whether it be offense, defense, resume preparation, the kicking game, or PowerPoint training. Jerry Campbell Football has what you need to build your knowledge base. Whether by using a traditional approach to cutting-edge technology, you can enhance your knowledge in nearly any area. You can also join in with coaches from all over the country at the interactive message forum at www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. That's www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. This segment of Coach's Corner is brought to you by Jerry Campbell Football. Check out Coach Campbell's book, Combining the 3-3-5 with the 4-2-5 Defensive Scheme, at www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. Coach Tony DeMeo is my guest. He's been putting up with my ranting and raving here for the better part of an hour now. So, Coach, let's talk about the quarterback position a little bit. I think that the introduction of more of the option game has allowed teams really to play with smaller quarterbacks. You don't need to have the guy who's 6'5", 6'8", weighs 250 pounds, has an arm like a cannon. I mean, some of these younger kids have arms like a cannon right now.
Well, the quarterback position is changing. As I said, 2 of the 4 quarterbacks. It's interesting in the 4 final teams in the NFL playoffs, 2 are dual threat quarterbacks and 2 are Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And my contention in the NFL is that if you don't have a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady, then you need to have a dual-threat quarterback. Because not only does he present a running threat, which is hard to account for, when you have a running quarterback, teams have a difficult time playing 5 under 2-man, 5 under man defense. In other words, man-to-man underneath and 2 deep safeties. Because if the linebackers turn their back to the quarterback playing man-to-man, the quarterback can take off and run, and that's real trouble. You know, he'll get big yards. So it limits the pass defense you can play if you have a running quarterback. So, again, if you don't have a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning or an Aaron Rodgers, you need to have a dual-threat quarterback that can level the playing field. And I think the proof is in the pudding that 50% of the Final Four are those kind of dual-threat quarterbacks. And RG3 was hurt this year. He came back too early. I mean, that's obvious. And there was that mess in Washington. But he'll bounce back next year, and that'll be a third guy of that mix. And then coming in, if anybody saw the Texas A&M Duke game, and you don't think that Johnny Manziel is going to be a great pro quarterback, then I think you need to reevaluate what game you're looking at. I mean, Johnny Manziel against Duke put on one of the best shows I've seen in decades. He reminds me of an awful lot of Roger Staubach when he was coming out of Navy. And he's got a laser for an arm, and he's got tremendous speed and quickness, and he will be a nightmare for NFL coordinators. How he was fifth in the Heisman Trophy voting, I mean, I can't quite figure. I don't know who was voting on that. It must have been Congress, because it wasn't anybody that knows anything about football.
There's another name that probably comes up into this mix when you look at Johnny Manziel, and I would probably say Sir Francis Tarkington, I think, would be another name to throw in.
You're exactly right. I talked to a friend of mine when during that game, actually, and that's what he called and told me that. He said, you know what, you always say he reminds you of Staubach. I think he reminds me more of Fran Tarkington. So it's interesting that you say that.
Well, it's because we're old guys, I mean.
But he does. He reminds me of Tarkington, too. I mean, you talk about extending. When in the Duke game, he jumped over his player, then jumped back over his player, and then completed a pass. I mean, I haven't seen that happen too often. But
obviously, those agility drills and monkey rolls have been working pretty good for him.
Those kind of guys extend the play and make it very difficult to get a sack, number one, but also, you can only cover a receiver so long. And when you extend a play like that, it really puts a lot of pressure on the secondary, in addition to the pressure of him running with the ball. So I think those kind of guys are really, as they're coming into the league, the league is going to change, and the league is changing as we see it. And as I said, the proof is in the pudding. The two of the four Final Four teams have running quarterbacks. And you have other good ones. The Bortles kid coming in from UCF is another one. He's a big, strong kid that can really run. So the dual-threat quarterbacks are coming in out of college that are mobile, fast, tough, strong kids that also control the ball.
I think what you're also seeing is that the schemes have been a lot more simplified. You don't see the vast number of schemes and formations as much. Formations maybe, numbers of schemes, I think there are more options involved in the fewer schemes that they're running, so that you're not burdening your quarterbacks with having to do a lot of thinking. I'm sure they're still doing that, but it's not to the extent that maybe it was 15 years ago. And let's throw another name into the mix while I'm thinking of it, Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy Bridgewater is a very talented player. I don't think he's going to be as good as people think. I've seen Teddy Bridgewater a lot, and I think he's a good player, not a great one. I think he'll be an adequate NFL quarterback, but he won't do the things that Johnny Manziel will do, or RG3 will do, or I'll tell you another name that we didn't talk about yet, but I think is a little better than Teddy Bridgewater is Taj Boyd from Clemson.
Taj Boyd, I've seen a lot of this year. I've seen a lot of tape on him. I don't think that he has the speed that some of the other ones have. He does have a good arm.
No.
He has great placement. I mean, great ball placement. And
very quick feet.
Yes, he does.
He has quick feet, so he'll be quick in the pocket. He'll run when he has to. But those guys, but they're both very, very good quarterbacks. And but I don't put them in Johnny Manziel's circle. I don't think there's too many people in Manziel's circle. Jameis Winston won the Heisman, But I'll tell you this, John, if you asked Jimbo Fisher before that game, you said, we're going to let you have a choice. We're going to give you Johnny Manziel for the month, and you can use him in the championship game. Will you do it? He would do it without a blink. You know, Jameis Winston was really very mediocre for 58 minutes of that game. And even the winning touchdown, he threw into coverage, and the kid made a great catch. The other guy, if you ask Nick Saban, McCarron finished ahead of Manziel in the voting. Mm-hmm. But if you ask Nick Saban, hey, Nick, you can have Johnny Manziel for A.J. McCarron. Even with a beautiful girlfriend, he's going to take Johnny Manziel.
And I can't think of too many coaches who wouldn't. I mean, that's a proven.
Right. So that's my thing. That's my disappointment with the whole Heisman thing. I mean, it seemed like ESPN started hyping Winston for the Heisman from the first game, and I just really don't like it. I think that, just in talking to coaches, and I know a lot of coaches in the SEC, and they will tell you the guy they least wanted to coach against was Johnny Manziel. But, as I said, there's too many people voting, I think, that have another agenda. There has to be. I mean, I can't explain it any other way. Anybody that has seen these people play know that he's in a class by himself. Because he's not just a running quarterback, he's just a rocket for an arm.
Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and take a break here, Coach. I think let's talk a little bit about the offensive line and maybe some skill positions. We've got one more segment left, and we'll try to cram it all in there if we can. If not, hey, there's another show. So we'll be right back, folks. Stick with us.
For over 10 years, Option Central has been the place where football coaches go to implement an option offense, to fine-tune an option attack, and to better understand and defend their opponent's explosive option-oriented offenses. OptionCentral.net, the premier site for all things option football. Started by a high school football coach to provide specialized resources geared specifically toward coaches of option football. Articles, videos, forums, podcasts, ebooks, available 24/7 from any computer with internet access. Ideas, insights, and coaching points from some of the most respected names in option football, including an extensive collection of material from coaches Jerry Campbell and Larry Beckish. Cost-effective, convenient, with membership plans to fit any budget. Ready to improve your option football coaching skills? It's time to join OptionCentral.net right now.
Someday I'll take it over and you'll see. I wanted you with me, watching over me. So I'll keep
this segment is brought to you by Option Central. OptionCentral.net. Everything option in one convenient place.
Have you ever known a high like this before? Have you never gotten off like this before?
I finally convinced him to send me his recipe for chili, but I'm kind of suspect as to the ingredients that he's telling me to put in here. I'm really going to take a look at that. Coach, let's look at some of the other positions in your offense here. I know on a number of different occasions that we've talked and we've recorded these conversations, and we've made coaches' corners out of them and mesh point programs out of them. Your offensive linemen really have to be really agile in this offense because they're playing in some space because of your smart splits. Mm-hmm. Is there a template that you like to use as far as determining?
Or like a profile.
Or a profile.
What I like to do is, I don't need massive guys. They just have to be big enough and strong enough, but they don't have to be like sumo wrestlers. But what I want them to do is have quick feet. So I might get a tight end that's a bigger tight end type and play him at tackles. I'll play the guards. The guards can be a little bit bigger, and but basically when I was coaching in college, I would take defensive linemen and make them offensive linemen, because defensive linemen are generally a little quicker, or defensive ends and play them at the tackle spot, tight ends and play them at the tackle spot. One of my last year coaching, I had a fellow who was a center on the basketball team, a tight end. He played right tackle for me. On the other side, the left tackle was a defensive end in high school. So those were the types I used at the tackle spot. I wanted them to be very quick, more than big. You have to have a certain size. I don't want a jockey playing there either. He has to be big enough, but quickness is the key thing. The guards can be a little bit bigger. They'll usually have help with pass protection, so they don't have as big a seam that they have to protect. But again, I can't have a guy who can't move. He has to have some quickness because of the smart splits. And then the center, I put the guy who's the best snapper at the center. You can't do anything without the snap. And that's how I use the offensive line. But another thing about this particular scheme, the triple gun offense, is that the linemen are interchangeable. So in, say, the wing T, you had to have guards that could pull, and they were totally different assignments than the tackle assignments. In this triple gun offense, basically everybody's doing the same thing. So if, say, a tackle goes down and your sixth best lineman is a guard, you can put him at tackle. And that's a big advantage when you're talking about depth at the collegiate level. Alabama, a lot of people were saying, they really went downhill at the end, but I think they had lost 2 or 3 of their starting offensive linemen in the last couple of games, and that makes a big difference in that kind of an offense.
And that your continuity is very important, especially in pass protection. It's important in your run blocking calls, even in combination blocking calls. When does one guy scrape off and move down to the next level? Maybe a guy moves too quickly, maybe doesn't get there fast enough, and the linebacker is able to plug.
Well, in the triple gun offense, the guards and the tackles, they all have the same type of assignment. It's seams and double teams. So we don't really have that issue.
There you go, rhyming again.
Yeah, seams and I don't rhyme all the time. But the assignments are very, very easy. I mean, there's only like a couple of blocking schemes. And the simplicity up front helps that continuity. In the case of a lineman getting hurt, that your sixth best can play, or that you always have depth. You can basically have 7 or 8 good linemen, and you can rotate them in. And the other part of that is that as linemen graduate, you don't have to have a tackle fill for a tackle. You might have a tackle replace a graduating guard. You know what I mean? In other words, the profile for a guard and a tackle are exactly the same.
So what you've done is you've created an interchangeable environment. It's almost like Legos.
Right, right. By the way, at the Mall of the Americas, I spoke up in Minneapolis one time, and then I got caught in a snowstorm, and there was flights, the whole airport was closed, and I had nothing to do, and my hotel was right next to the Mall of the Americas. And I wound up spending literally 4 hours at the Lego store playing Legos. and I would have still been there if this one 8-year-old kid would have left me alone.
Only on Coach's Corner, folks. Only on Coach's Corner. Coach, I am glad we took the time to talk and catch up and do all this stuff and talk ball. But unfortunately, as it tends to happen, we have run out of time.
Well, John, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and I know we both like jazz, we both like football, what could be better, and we both like Italian food, what could be better than that?
I don't know a whole lot.
And one of your guests, John Iannucci, by the way, is an Italian food aficionado.
Absolutely, he is. Yes,
he's a head coach at Holy Spirit high school just outside of Atlantic City in New Jersey. And every time we go back from when we were in high school, and whenever I'm down in that way, I always make sure he takes me out for a nice Italian dinner. And John can eat now. He's got good hand-to-mouth coordination. And the big thing when you're out to dinner with John is keep your fingers off the table. Because if you get red sauce on them, they might be a casualty.
You know he's going to have something to say about that.
He's a heck of a coach, a great option coach, and as I said, he lost in the state finals this past season, the 2013 season, but he's a great football coach and a great friend.
Coach, once again, it's great to have you on the program. As always, we extend the invitation to have you back on.
Well, I want you to have my former assistant, Ralph Iserni, on, another Tally, who's now the head football coach at RPI up in Albany.
And he had a great year, too.
He did. He had a good turnaround year. His first year up there, he's starting to get his people in place. He said that, it's probably one of the top engineering schools in the country, so he's very limited in who he can accept. You have to have great grades to go there. I sent him the name of a kid, and I said, he said, well, I don't think the kid can get in. And I said, why not? And he said, well, he couldn't even spell RPI. So that was a problem right off the bat. But he's doing a great job up there, and hopefully you can have him on. He's a outstanding young football coach, runs a triple gun, and does a great job.
Yes, sir. I have talked to him a couple of times. We are going to have him on at least 2 shows coming up. We're going to have him on a Coach's Corner program and on a Mesh Point program. And folks, make sure that you look out for when Coach Ralph Isernia comes on. This gentleman is a walking encyclopedia on option football.
He really is, and he's done a great. I had a great time coaching with him at the University of Charleston. I coached with him for 6 years, and we do camps and other projects together even now. So very proud of him, the job that he's done up there.
Coach, I'm getting dirty looks from our producer right now. I think we've run out of time here, and
okay.
I think I'm going to end up paying for it, else she's going to start twisting my fingers back. I think it will be the next step.
Take care.
Thank you, Coach. And for the rest of you, hey, we got some final thoughts for you right after this.
Once again, a huge thank you to Coach Tony DeMeo for appearing on the program. Also, some additional side notes here. Number one, make sure you check out our new sponsors, Coach's Office and Coach's Portfolio. Also, Coach Rob Zeitman appeared on an Option Central episode, which is up there on OptionCentral.net right now. For those of you who have access, we'll be talking about the option game at Ferris State University. They beat Grand Valley State 2 years in a row. We'll be talking with Coach Zeitman and had a lot of great information there. Also in the works right now, we are putting together a guest list for a special program covering college recruiting, and I think everybody has an interest in that because everybody's got an opinion on it. We're going to get some folks in here who know a lot about it, and we're going to have a great big discussion on it. Who knows, maybe if we're lucky, we may have more than one program on it. What? Goat, quit eating the truck. Remember, Coach's Corner is an Abundant Harvest production here on the CompuSports Radio Network. Folks, we'll see you next time. I've got to go get the goat out from under the truck.